Hello, Uncle Jim here. Today I want to share with you how I did last month in my retirement account. I actually had some interesting things happen. Had an assignment not related to ex-dividend dates. This one was kind of unique. And I also had some trades that I have never done before. So stay tuned. I think you're going to really enjoy what I have for you today. Okay, before I jump into my retirement spreadsheet, I do want to talk about a couple of key points with May in my retirement account. This is primarily my Roth retirement account. I do have some other retirement accounts, but this is one I like to share mainly because it's right around 50,000 and it's fairly easy to kind of go over the number of trades that I have in this account. So first, when you're trading and you're trading in retirement accounts, and I've talked about this in a lot of my other videos, you do have a lot more flexibility because it's tax deferred. So you don't have to worry so much about profits and losses. You still need to worry about them because you always want to make good profits. But it allows you, especially if you have positions that you've had for a long time and the cost basis is really low, you don't really have to worry about those as much as you do in brokerage accounts. So it gives you a little more flexibility and maybe a little more being able to take a little bit more risk. And then I wanted to talk about, I had mentioned in the beginning of this video that I had an assignment. Ford actually got assigned to me the Monday before the expiration day, which I've never had happen to me before. Typically, most of your options will get assigned right at expiration, or typically not before. And this is the first one I've had. I've been selling options for a long time, and this is the first one. It actually occurred on the Monday before the Friday expiration, which was a real surprise to me. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I go over the spreadsheet, but I found it real interesting. So it made me change my strategy a little bit to kind of be cognizant that people could have these assignments occur a little bit before. Now, this Ford was fairly deep in the money, so it may be that you have to watch out for especially deeper in the money options, but it's allowing me to actually really do the wheel strategy. So I originally had sold the put, now it's been assigned, and now I've sold the call, and maybe the call will also get assigned. So it's allowing me to really work that option wheel, which in a short sense is just, again, you sell a put, maybe you get assigned. Then once you're assigned, you sell a call. And if you get assigned again, then you've got the cash and you can sell a put. So it's kind of, it's kind of like a wheel. You keep spinning that wheel. And I feel like in retirement accounts, you can really spin the wheel even faster. So that's what I'm planning to do with Ford. And I do have Intel, which is also fairly deep in the money. Mainly because they've come out with some pretty, their outlook for next year is a little bit rough, but I like what they're doing as a company. They're building factories, they're bringing their chip production in-house, back into the country, relying less on China and less on Taiwan and other countries, which I think is a good thing. So farther out, I think it's a great company to invest in. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Intel and how I'm going to deal with that. But I may also let it get assigned. Right now, I think it's around 41 or 42, and I have a put strike around 45, so I'd be okay with that being assigned. And then I also rolled a covered call, which was expiring pretty far out there. I think it wasn't expiring till August, but because it's in an ETF, the ETF came down so much that I was able to lower the price and roll it and make some good income off it. Again, sticking to a 20 delta. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the spreadsheet. And I only did 4 trades, so it should be fairly easy to go over these and share with you my thought process for each and every one of them. But before we jump into that, as always, please hit that like button, subscribe. I do have links below to my Patreon if you want to take a look at either one of my memberships. I've got a $10 membership, which I share my trades. I share my planning worksheet. At the top of my planning worksheet now, I actually share with you not just my favorites, but what strike price I'm looking at, what delta I'm looking at, and a little bit more detail. And that comes either on Sunday or Monday every week. And I share any of these other spreadsheets with my patrons. And in my higher expensive membership, which is, I believe, $25 a month, We have a weekly meeting, as well as I have a Discord that you can use. And I do a little bit more hand holding. So a lot of times questions will go back and forth, and I'll spend time with people and see if I can answer their questions, which hopefully I can. If not, I will share with you where you need to go to get the answers you need. So thanks for joining me, and let's jump into that spreadsheet. Okay, I've opened up my spreadsheet for my Roth account from last month. And this kind of shares, I've shared these in the past, so I'm going to try to keep the top part kind of brief. So over here to the right, I list the initial account values, what they were back in September 21, and I kind of compare that to what the current value is. So you can see it's about flat. It's about the same value as it was at the beginning of September or around September. It's down at what, a little less than $500. Current cash is very similar too. So I had sold quite a bit of cash when I first started selling options in this account. Part of the reason I believe the cash was as high as 16,000, and now it's down a little bit, mainly because of that assignment I talked about before. Now I own 300 shares of Ford, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But May was kind of a rough month. It was down quite a bit. I believe the Dow itself was down 6.5%. I mentioned up here on the right, and then the Nasdaq and S&P were down even more. I think the Nasdaq may have been down close to 10% and 7 or 8% maybe for S&P 500. Don't quote me on those. I'm just trying to give you an idea that it was kind of a rough month, and June's kind of playing into the same thing. I think we're going a little bit more to this, vertically versus down, but it's very volatile. So, and I think that's going to continue for a while. I have no idea when it's going to end, but I want to position this account to do really well when it does end. And, when it does end, that it can grow pretty rapidly, primarily by picking up stocks that I want to own at good values, and then seeing them grow quite a bit when we do come out of this and the market recovers. So, down here, I just mentioned the different. I only have 4 securities in this account. One is the Wisdom Tree hedge equity account, and I've talked about it in the past. It's pays a fairly good dividend. Well, 2%, not that good, but not too bad. And then I primarily write covered calls on it. I've got DVY right now, only 31 shares, and DVY is a great ETF that I've enjoyed owning, and it does quite well, and it pays close to a 3% dividend. And then IGH, which is the iShares Core S&P Mid Cap, and this has been one of my best performers long term. Not so much in the last 6 months, but since I've owned it for many years, it's done quite well. And then Ford, this is the assignment that I talk about now. I have 300 shares. They're valued at 1368. And all of these are down. You can see in red there that they're all down. So I did last month. I actually compared it to if I hadn't actually sold options and I'd stuck to the original investments. And I checked that again. It's the same thing. I'm doing better having sold options than not selling options. So, and it was the magnitude of about 5%. So I would have done 5 to 6% worse if I had stuck to the original investments. And you could see why, because a lot of these shares have been down quite a bit. And I didn't do many trades. So I actually, there's 5 trades, but 2 of these are related to Ford in the assignment. But first, let's talk about Intel. So Intel was the first trade I did during the month, and I did it. I didn't really get started till close to the middle of May with doing Roth trades. So 518 is when I did the first trade in Intel, and at the time, right now it's the current value is 42, but at the time I believe this was out of the money. I believe it was 46. But again, the outlook with Intel, they came out just in the last day or two with a pretty rough outlook for the rest of 22. But again, I like what they're doing. I think long term they're going to come back with a rebound. The fact that they're bringing manufacturing back, but currently it's definitely fairly deep in the money, and I was able to trade it. I rolled it out to 624, and I kept the same strike prices, and I picked up $86, so not bad. And it's one contract. And it is again a vertical put contract with the short strike 45 and in the outer arm 35. So Intel, I've done a lot of trading in it. I've done it both in my brokerage and my Roth, and I've done really well with it. But again, since it's gone down so much recently, I've noticed it's becoming a little bit harder to roll. But I'm okay with owning Intel at 45. Not too long ago, it was $70, $80. And historically, going all the way back to 16 and 17, 40, 45 has always been a fairly good value to pick it up. And you can't really plan for the bottom. You've got to kind of pick it up at a good price. And if I keep rolling it down, there may be a point where I'm not able to roll it anymore. But again, around 45, it's a good value. So, and I could sell some pretty good calls on it, which I'm currently, I think I own 400 shares of it in my brokerage, and I sell quite a bit of calls on it. So that's the first trade. The next one is this IGH, and this is another interesting trade I had. So IGH went down quite a bit. Originally, I had it at 285, and it came down into the 240s, 250s, and because of that, the value of profit in it, I got to like 80, 90% profit. So what I did is I actually rolled it to the same strike price. You can see here 819, and I lowered the strike to 260, and I've picked up another $229. And the interesting thing is the 260 strike is my 20 delta that I typically like to do. So it worked out quite well. And that's one of the first ones that I did that I was able to roll down to a lower strike, once the stock price went down. And I've owned this for a really long time, and I believe my cost is probably in the 150s. So just found that interesting. I haven't in the past rolled to the same, you know, rolled to a lower strike, but with the same expiration. So um, it worked out fairly well for me. And right now it's around 251. So if it suddenly jumps up, I'll be able to probably roll it back up fairly easily. Next was Ford. So we'll talk a little bit about Ford. So Ford, again, it was expiring on 520, and on 516, it actually got assigned to me. So I got a message from Schwab that night saying that 300 shares were assigned to me, and they also mentioned, well, make sure you have enough cash in your account. And it was kind of a nice message. It really wasn't. They weren't doing a margin call, but they were kind of just letting me know to be sure I verify that I've got enough cash. But it wasn't in actuality a margin call. So, and it was three vertical put credit spreads at 16.12. So the assignment was at $16. It's now currently 13.53. So I have taken a bit of a loss with the assignment, which is what I'm showing here, which is 734. So if you take the current value, you take I actually sold the outer arm of that vertical put credit spread, and it brought in I think $7 or $8, not a whole lot. But when you compare it to the current value, I did, at 13.53, I did take a $700 loss for that. But here you can see it's and this is where I was talking about the options wheel. Literally soon after that, I forgot to change this date, but I think it was like 518. I actually wrote three covered calls at 16, which is the same price that I had originally written the vertical put credit spread, and I picked up on those three contracts $145. So, and they're 80, 90, they're getting really close to the point where I'll let them expire or close them. So I may do something similar to what's been done with this covered call up here, but I want to keep it close to the 16 because that was my cost basis. So I don't typically want to go underneath that. And I did some calculations. If it does get assigned at 16, I've made like a 15 or 20% profit for the year if it gets assigned. So again, not bad. But that's one of the first. Now, well, one of the first in this account where I've done the true options wheels. So the put was assigned. Now I've written the cover call. If it ends up getting assigned, then I'll write another vertical put credit spread or a cash secured put. So And I'm also going to get dividends. I did add here what my yearly dividends would be. So, and this is for the total account. So 661 for the year, a little bit above $50. But one thing in future videos, I'm hoping to increase that. I'd like to get closer to 3%, which would be almost like what would that be, 1,500. So I need to, you know, once I do take ownership of these and do get dividends, like Intel, I think pays close to 3.5% dividend, then I'll be able to reach that. But the reason it's partially so low is because I have so much cash in the account. And some of the other main securities don't pay as good a dividend. Like IGH, I believe it pays like 1.5 to 2%. So, and then I did an out of the money covered call. I actually wrote a new one. And again, these dates, I forgot to change them, but I believe I wrote it around 522, 523, something like that. And I picked up 67 more dollars on writing covered calls. And I've been doing these pretty much every month. So not bad. So let's jump down, and you can see here I took a $205 loss. That's when you assume the cash I made on the other trades and then the loss related to the Ford. I took a $200 loss this month, but if you take out the Ford loss, I really brought in an additional 528 in cash. But I wanted to kind of share both angles of that. The monthly return, this 528 again is related to pretty close to 1%. But this loss on a monthly return is zero point 0.4, and then yearly it doesn't really make sense when you've got a loss. But I guess, let's see, this would probably relate very similarly to last month. With every other month, I've been right around $500, which is like 1% or 12% yearly. And then some of this stuff I've talked about before. This is my account return from prior years. So I managed it myself, but I didn't sell options, and I averaged 9.5% return. And again, total return, if you use the rule of 72 here, would be a little bit lower. So I don't know if these calculations are correct because of this negative number. And then, I've shared in the past that I had an advisor, financial advisor, running this account back from 11 to 15, and my returns for those years were fairly rough. So I've talked about this before. So this month's a little bit unique with what's happened with Ford, and that's what I talk about. I had 3 call contracts and then 1 put and 1 assignment. So not a whole lot of activity. And if this is your account, it doesn't take much time. I probably spent no more than an hour or two doing these trades. And again, the uniqueness with the Ford assignment, I've never had, and I've sold hundreds of options. So this is the first one that's ever been assigned on the Monday before expiration. So I'm probably going to be more due diligent going forward in my planning worksheet to really take notice of ones that are deep in the money and try to get them rolled the week before or closed, managed in a healthy way. So that's my retirement account. And so it was kind of an interesting month, not a little bit different from previous months because of this loss with the Ford. But I'm hoping Ford comes back. I still like it. It's a company I still want to own. And they don't pay a bad dividend because of at the price they currently are. I think it's around 2.5% dividends. So, and I'd really like some of the vehicles they're coming out with, like the Ford Lightning, and I've talked about that in previous videos. So that's it. That's what happened last month, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any comments or questions, are you wondering how difficult this is to do yourself, please leave a comment. I like to answer. I pretty much answer all comments. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this, and I have a wonderful day.